But excited, as I mentioned earlier, to talk in our next series of DLT and blockchain in the real world. This is where we really try to highlight applications that are in the wild, actually using this exciting technology and doing so in meaningful and interesting ways. With us today is Jeff Hudson of the Coupon Bureau. Hi, Jeff. You want to give a quick introduction of yourself?
Yeah, sure. I'm the CIO here at the Coupon Bureau, and I've been working with Brandy and Jay for quite a while, along with the rest of the team. I'm mostly responsible for marketing, communications, a lot of our written materials, that kind of thing. So we all do a little bit of everything here.
I bet you guys are doing a lot of work with a pretty scrappy team, it seems like, from my perspective. So it's impressive. And today we're talking about evolving these retail coupons with the Coupon Bureau. This is a really interesting space. I don't think people from the outside world really understand everything, the challenges that you'll get into. So a lot of good information there. Before we dive into that, just want to frame this for people that are less familiar with Hedera. We are a public distributed ledger that is really focused on mainstream and enterprise adoption of this technology. We believe there are, typical challenges that need to be solved in this space in order to reach this mainstream adoption, from performance, security, stability, and governance. And we believe we're doing a really good job of solving all of these today. An example of that is just from the performance and low fees, also energy efficiency, which I think is a hot topic today, obviously. All thanks to the Hashgraph consensus algorithm is what makes that possible. And really the unique technology that underlies everything that we do. And that's really what we're talking about today, is this consensus service API. So the Coupon Bureau, which Jeff will get more into, is using the consensus service API to power this platform and the integrity of the information that runs through it. For Hedera, we are this general purpose ledger, so you can build really anything on top of us, and you'll see that in this application use case category. We have our set of APIs, the consensus service, the token service that developers can really easily tap into. All, of course, relies on that Hashgraph consensus algorithm and is governed by our Hedera Governing Council. So as a decentralized network, like any decentralized network, you have to choose or not choose what your governing structure looks like. For Hedera, these are our Hedera Governing Council members that steward the direction and code base of our network and are doing a really good job at that. So without further ado, let's get into some of the more exciting stuff with Jeff and the Coupon Bureau. I'll stop sharing my screen here for you, Jeff.
Okay.
There we go.
Right on, Garrick. Thanks a lot for the introduction, and we're happy to be here. Again, I handle a lot of the communications and marketing, along with some of the business development. We want to talk a little bit about the background of the project and give you a little bit clearer context of how we use the consensus service and what we're trying to accomplish. We'll also talk about why we're here to begin with. So these legacy coupon problems that have been plaguing the industry for quite a long time, we're trying to solve those. And from there, we want you to understand why we use DLT and how it's used, and get into some of the real world results that we saw with our pilot, and then talk about where we're going in the future. So we got a lot to cover. Without further ado. So a little bit of background about the Coupon Bureau. We were created by two groups that manage guidelines and standards for the industry, JICC and ACP. So in like 2016, after a proliferation of smartphones really began to take hold in the marketplace, the groups realized they had a problem with digital coupons. There was no standard unified way to distribute digital coupons across all retailers. And the technology really outpaced the governing bodies. So, excuse me, they created a working group to address the issue. And out of that working group came the standard AI 8112, Universal Digital Coupon. So we were selected as a nonprofit to implement and manage the solution for the industry. And the legacy coupon challenges that we are trying to get after, it starts with the current coupon ecosystem. It operates on a GS1 barcode known as AI 8110. And it was developed over a decade ago. And at that time, it was seen as a real improvement, but as with everything these days, the technology and the consumer behavior is changing on a daily basis. And the technology around that system really, excuse me, outpaced the standards bodies. So I'll try to simplify this whole thing into three main areas of concern. So coupon fraud, this is mostly due to the insecure nature of the barcode. It's really easily gamed by fraudsters. And I won't go into details here, but it's kind of like having a hole in your boat that you can't patch. And with the AI 8110, there's very little to no real-time validation done on the actual coupon at the time of checkout. So what that does is it creates this massive black hole of fraud that you can't track. And it's treated as a form of tender, coupons are, by the retailers. So that really, you can just see that it's a really acute problem for the industry. All of that causes friction between the cashier and the customer, and also obviously between the retailer and the manufacturer. So it's a huge problem. The second major challenge is the lack of a national digital coupon ecosystem for these manufacturers. So most of the technical innovation that's been done in the last 10 years has been done at the retail level inside their closed loop loyalty systems. And they've come up with a lot of fantastic tools for their shoppers, but just by the nature of them developing those tools in-house inside their loyalty platforms, they're not cross-retailer compatible. So that hurts the user, and it hurts the shopper, and it also hurts the manufacturer. What it does in practicality is it forces the manufacturers to deploy like 20 different campaigns across the country to reach all of their audience that they're trying to reach. And that's just an enormous operational hassle for them. And when you think about it, they don't really own that relationship. If the shopper in the campaign is, if the coupon is executed through the loyalty platform, that relationship is between the retailer and the shopper, and not the manufacturer directly. So the last part of this is the legacy system, the AI 8110, doesn't provide a standardized data exchange for trading partners all across the ecosystem. Retailers are literally still bagging paper coupons by hand, shipping them to Mexico, and emailing Excel files to each other. It's really archaic, and it's surprising that it's still going on today, and that's what we're trying to solve. So the size of this problem, when you look at the scope, there's 227 billion coupons distributed, the last count that we had, and about 1.375 billion redeemed. The vast majority of this volume is paper coupons, which are basically still around because of the lack of a national digital coupon solution for the manufacturers. We anticipate that when we have a handful of large national retailers connected across the United States, there's going to be a really swift migration over to the universal digital format. That's what we're hearing from our partners. And the roadmap that we released in 2020 details how once we reach around 70 to 75% of retail connectivity, we will also port this technology over to the paper format as well. So we'll be able to secure all coupons. So these are just a few sound bites from direct conversations, excuse me, that we've had with our retailer and CPG partners. A little bit of everything. We can't really tell you who these are, but this is a personal one-on-one conversation quotes. So the problem persists, you know, with all of our stakeholders and the different roles that they have. They're all seeing and feeling the issue. So fraud, obviously we touched on this a little bit, but the reason I call it a black box is because it's really a mystery. No one knows how big the problem is exactly, and we can only piece together little bits of this from one retailer to the next. In our conversations, no one really wants to talk about the real numbers because it's not something anyone wants out in the public. So some of our more prominent retailers have told us that on average, about 5% of the redemptions that they see are fraudulent. It varies obviously a lot by retailer and their policies that they have at the point of sale. But considering there's over 1 billion coupons redeemed annually, obviously it's a big problem. So step one to killing coupon fraud is designing a new, more secure barcode. And that is also validated at the point of sale in real time. So if the point of sale immediately verifies the authenticity of the coupon and rejects it as fraud or accepts it because it's valid, we've solved the vast majority of coupon fraud right there on the spot. So the industry term for this is kill to till, and that's what we're trying to get in place. There's a lot of other benefits to that process. I can't go into all of it, but POS connectivity at the retailer on a national level is the key to everything that we're doing. Obviously, connecting every point of sale is an epic undertaking, and we've recruited a number of strategic industry partners who are actively helping with this task. It's not happening overnight, of course, but it is happening. So to touch on the next big subject here is settlement, obviously. This is my favorite and least favorite topic of all at the same time. It's part of the industry that's most crucial because there's a lot of money changing hands between trade partners. And the current process is still manual, as I mentioned before. Coupons are collected by the retailer, mailed through the postal service after they're bagged up, sent to Mexico where they're counted, and then mailed back again to the clearinghouse. And that's when the settlement and the accounting starts. By the time they're done, it's like 45 to 60 days later, and the retailer's just getting paid. So this is a major cash flow problem for the retailer, and it's also a security issue, obviously. It's something that the industry is really looking to approve upon, and the real-time transfer of the redemption data to the trade partners is kind of the foundation for speeding this whole process up. So distributed ledger technology, let's dive a little bit further into that. I will tell you I'm not an engineer, so I can speak to this from a business and strategy perspective. We're an industry organization that is trusted with transferring monetary data. In order to have trade partners participate in that ecosystem, you need the trust and the trust layer. And in order to have the trust, you have to have the transparency. So distributed ledger provides for that. And at the same time, it protects the integrity of the data that is being transferred and recorded. So it really acts as a check and balance system, keeping everybody in line, including the Coupon Bureau. So it's really the perfect tool for what we're doing. And why Hedera? So there's a technical answer to this and also a business answer. So on the business side, Hedera has been a really amazing partner for us. Hedera has really intelligent, best-in-class teams that have been supporting us. So that includes like Zenobia and Christian and you guys, Garrig and Lena, and especially Azim Malik. He's been a rock star for us. So as a small nonprofit, their help and their network of resources has been a real game changer for us, and we're very grateful for that. On the technical side, the advantages that Hedera has are number one, high performance. I mean, we're dealing with lane times at the point of sale in the largest grocery stores in the world. So every second costs millions of dollars, and we can't be noticeable in terms of lane time at all. And when you're dealing with Hedera, again, the next benefit is the economics. Everything's fixed to the US dollar at a very, very low cost. And this is really important when you're handling potentially 250 billion coupons that change state a couple times each. The other tokens, obviously, with their structure, are not even an option for this. So, and lastly, the private permission network model, that's really a must for enterprise across multiple groups of trading partners. The other reason we chose Hedera, obviously, and it was kind of an ancillary benefit, is the ecological impact. So obviously with paper coupons, you have a huge ecological impact. These numbers kind of speak for themselves. But at the same time, the mission really pairs nicely with Hedera. They are, we've all heard about the problems with Bitcoin and Ethereum and energy usage. That's a popular topic right now. The energy required to complete transactions on those ecosystems is significant. Hedera solves for that totally and completely. And in combination with less paper waste from coupons, it's a really good story right now. So now that we understand the why, let's get into the how and how this is used in the real world. On the left, we have a representation of the new connected ecosystem that we're deploying. At the very center of it is what we call the master offer file. It's the manufacturer's file that contains all the offer details and rules for the campaign. They're able to authorize all of their partners within that ecosystem that they work with to access the master offer file in order to complete their part of the transaction. So on the right, you have the Hedera Consensus Service, and that is being employed as the trust layer. So there's 3 stages of these offers that everyone needs to agree upon and needs to be captured into the consensus service. So that number 1 is when the offer is created, obviously. Number 2, when a serialized data string is deposited back into the master offer file. So in layman's terms, that's when the coupon is clipped by the shopper. And then the redemption. So while the Coupon Bureau is the single source of truth for the industry as a whole needs to agree and trust that data. And the trust layer that we use for that is Hedera and the distributed ledger. And we have to make sure that that integrity of the data is protected for all the players involved in the long run. So let's look at the coupon journey. When the manufacturer on the left creates and deposits the coupon in the positive offer file, as I just said, it's recorded into the consensus service. And then the marketing agency or the provider will get involved and distribute the coupon through whatever media channels. And here it's a web page viewed on a mobile browser. In this example, then the shopper will get see the banner, click the offer, and at that point it's clipped. And there's a prompt to add it to the wallet. That's when it's, at that point, it's serialized. And then you can see it can either be scanned right away or saved into the wallet and then scanned at redemption. And again, recorded to Hedera. So our initial pilot, you might have seen this before. We completed this in Q4 2020. And we chose to deploy in a very controlled environment. Just to minimize any issues that might arise. We chose Eldon's, which is a really well-run and respected family retailer in Minnesota. We worked with our providers, RevTrax, Pop Wallet, and Qples, and they deployed coupons that were provided by P&G, particularly the Pampers brand, and General Mills gave us Betty Crocker coupons. And for the record, the first universal digital coupon scan that day was Pampers coupon for 50 cents off, which you can see. Everything went according to plan, and we'll see some details on the next slide. Okay, so the serialized deposit. I wanted to show you guys what I like to show this stuff off because it's really cool. Our technical team, Jay and Abhijit, have designed an amazing platform. And I just like to kind of show this off because it's so cool to see. But this is what you would actually see in the platform if you were digging around looking for details on a particular transaction. This is an example of the serialized deposit from an actual live coupon. I have to block most of this out, obviously, but we can get a look under the hood and see. So this is a more recent transaction. And when the coupon is clipped and serialized and distributed to the consumer, you can see all of this data. So you can see the main net, the topic ID, which you'll recognize, the hash, the transaction message, and the timestamps, and also the serialized GS1. So you can see at the bottom, if maybe you can see that on the screen, that's a P&G domain, and that tells you who distributed it. So after it's serialized, hopefully it gets redeemed. And you can see that as well. Again, the main net, the topic, all of that consensus related information is here. And you can see the timestamp and then the retailer domain. So that's what it looks like on the back end. It's really cool. And so now that you've seen how it's used, I can give you guys a general update on our status and where we're at. I know you're all very anxious for that. So like I said, we completed that first pilot in Q4 2020. It was a proof of concept and it went really well inside of that closed system. And then earlier this year in February, we launched the open retailer connectivity phase. And we're working with a number of the top 10 retailers directly on their integration. And the rest are communicating through accelerator partners. Some of them are in development already, and some of them are really evaluating the technical lift and trying to figure out where to slot this into their dev timelines. So it's a new standard and it's going to happen. It's not a matter of if, but when. And the wheels are in motion and it's moving forward. It's of course never as fast as we want, but we're realistic about changes that occur within a retailer point of sale in a $1 trillion industry. It's not a small undertaking. So we're super excited to see all of this hard work come to fruition. And with Hedera's help, it's getting closer every day. So part of the way you can see that is some of the brands that have coupons in market right now. So we know P&G is a really big proponent of our mission, and they've been very helpful, one of our biggest supporters, because they represent roughly 25% of the coupons in the market. What they do has a lot of sway. Some of the other coupons that we have live right now through General Mills, Kimberly-Clark, Georgia-Pacific, they're either being built or they're already in market. And then at the bottom are some of the manufacturers that are, a part of the ACP group that built this standard. So they'll eventually be releasing coupons in this format. So let's get a look at the ecosystem that we're working on, because I think there's stuff here that you guys will be even more interested in. As we work to develop the standard, we have obviously come across some related issues that either impact what we're doing or could be helped by our efforts. Digital receipt standards and digital ID, which help connect users to their coupons no matter where they're clipped, are also part of what we're solving for. It wasn't necessarily part of our scope when we started, but in order to do this right and make the implementation something that will last, it's something that we want to tackle. And we're doing that with Hedera's help. So wherever you see the green H, that's where they're helping out. It's really exciting. I can't get into all of it today, but you can see when you're dealing with digital ID, digital receipts, and really the modernization of retail standards, it's got really, really big scope, and it's super exciting. I can't wait to show you guys in the future. Let's get a look at our roadmap. It's available. I pulled this right off our site. It's available to everyone. This roadmap is based on the paper released by JICC and ACP. It's called the Coupon Security and Standardized Data Exchange Project. It's available on our site for anyone to read it if you should choose. We're obviously right in the middle of the open retailer connectivity phase, so we're early on. And we hope to be able to announce once we hit that milestone close to phase 4. It's only going to take like 1 or 2 really big national retailers. You can probably figure out who they are before we're able to announce a sunset of 8110. And when we can do that and sunset 8110, move everything, including paper, over to 8112, we'll really be able to securitize all coupons. And that's what we're shooting for. So that's all I have, Garrett. And I'm sure we have lots of questions.
We do have some good questions here and very exciting stuff. Thank you for sharing all of that. Yeah. Let's just dive into a few questions here. I'll try to start with some general ones that maybe people missed a mention or similar. Is there any real world coupons issued using Hedera Hashgraph as of right now? Yeah.
The ones on the slide I showed you. So like right now we have Pantene, L'Oreal, a lot of P&G offers, and then Kimberly-Clark and Georgia-Pacific have built coupons, and they're just, I believe they'll be turned on in the next week or 2. So we have quite a few, probably 9 or 10 live coupons that are in market.
Very cool. Yeah. And by 9 or 10 coupons, I'm assuming that means, multiple copies of the same type of coupon. Is that right?
So for example, like a $1 off Tide Pods, and each brand would have typically 1 offer at this scale. When we're out national, I'm sure that it'll be much more complex than that.
Makes sense. Cool. And someone was curious, and I don't know if you have too much insight into this, how is the onboarding of the manufacturers and retailers? Is it going smoothly? What difficulties have you guys had?
We spent so long talking to manufacturers before we started talking to the retailers that they all have a pretty good expectation of what's happening. And the key partners there are the providers, because the providers are the ones that are really building and managing the campaign for the manufacturers. So a lot of the responsibility of the onboarding is being handled by the RevTraxes and the Qples and the Pop Wallets of our ecosystem. So they do a great job for us in kind of evangelizing the whole thing.
Makes sense. And can you just define providers in that context?
Yeah, provider is responsible for the distribution of the coupon. So they are kind of like a high-tech marketing agency, right? So they'll actually deploy the wallet creative. So they'll provide a link to the marketing agency, and that when the user clicks that link, that's when the provider jumps into action. They identify the GS1, then they serialize the GS1 and distribute it back to the consumer, and they're responsible for all that technical work in between.
Makes sense. And then what type of channels or applications will consumers typically receive a digital coupon through?
Yeah, and the same way you would do it now. So either through web media, any kind of web media, SMS messaging, a newsletter from ShopRite or something like that, or a particular brand directly. That's really what the brands, I think, are looking for. Is, you know, P&G has 50 million people in Brand Saver. They want to be able to email them a coupon. So.
Makes sense. And then just talking a little bit more about the system in general and how it's performing, how quickly does the coupon settlement occur for the retailer? And are we paying on the opposite side of that quickly, or is that process still in the works?
Okay, so that's a complicated two-part question. So the settlement, the important thing about what we did and the way we tackled this is that we left all the stakeholders in their key roles. So we're not displacing anyone. So the settlement today is going to happen through the same settlement partner that the retailer and the manufacturer are already working with. And as of right now, I can't speak to, are they using this data to speed up settlement? So I can't say exactly how fast it's happening. My guess is, just in a general sense, that at the beginning, it'll be exactly like it is right now. And then as they adapt their processes, and these coupons are kind of the ubiquitous dominant coupon, then they would probably be able to settle a little bit faster, I would think, but I don't want to get myself in trouble.
Absolutely. We don't want that either. And so just a few other questions about the ecosystem. Will we see a coupon bureau like Explorer to see redeemed coupons? I wouldn't think so, no. At least not externally to the public.
No, only if you're authorized on that master offer file, then you would be able to see that data.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I think I got perhaps a little lost in translation there is really the hash of that transaction is what's being recorded on Hedera. For those authorized parties to then validate that information. And the reason for that model is really sorry, I'm chuckling. I see a question about if I'm related to Cooper. And yes, we are brothers and do sound very similar. Thanks, Reggie. Apologies, Jeff.
Oh, it's okay.
And so the reason or motivation for that model is really to preserve the privacy for those enterprises that don't want maybe other competitors or whomever else seeing that information. But they're trusting the coupon bureau to be this kind of neutral actor within the process.
Exactly. Got it right. Yeah, we have to protect the everyone's strategic business data, and that has to stay private, but we also need everyone to trust that the data is not being manipulated. So.
Absolutely. So a few more questions here, some that are a little bit more forward looking. I don't know if you want to take a stab at. Yeah, that's right. So Brandon is interested in the possibility for micro coupon, I think is an interesting concept. Similar to kind of a micro payment or a micro transaction that's now possible. Do we see a world in which we're getting smaller amounts of coupons potentially?
Smaller amounts of coupons or smaller
amounts in terms of their value?
In terms of their value. No, actually we see kind of the opposite. When you remove a lot of inefficiency, like for example, mailing coupons to Mexico, you have more room to increase savings. And when the redemption rates are higher, the manufacturer can offer a higher coupon. There's just a lot less waste. So 99% of coupons are unredeemed. So if you can reduce that number significantly, then the manufacturer theoretically has more money to put into the value of the coupon.
Interesting.
But any like technical ideas like that, because I think I maybe heard a different inquiry there from what he was talking about. CTOTCB is Jay Johnson's Twitter. He's gonna be mad that I'm just lighting him up like that, but direct all those cool innovation questions to him, and he will be happy to engage you. He loves doing that stuff.
That's fantastic. I love it. I'll give him a follow right after this.
Okay.
And do you see any kind of a shift in the platform to lower the barriers to entry for small manufacturers or participants?
Yeah, exactly. So that's a great insight. And so when you have all of these built-in barriers to entry that are a lot of times related to the cost of executing a coupon, especially just the cost of print. If I'm on social media and I have a influencer-driven brand, my cost of acquisition for my audience is very, very low, and it can lower that barrier to entry. Whereas if which means you can distribute coupons to them for very little. I mean, we cost a penny to secure a coupon. That's it. So really, you just need a developer and that penny and an audience, and you can execute coupons. I think that we'll see a lot. It's really democratizing the access to this whole process. So I think you'll see a lot of smaller brands able to execute coupons that weren't before.
Oh, that's super interesting. Can open up a lot there.
Yeah.
Which is great. One question that I'll try to take on, I don't think you'll have the ability to answer, Jeff,
Okay.
is really the plan for dealing with downtime that occurs during like a maintenance window on the Hedera mainnet. I'm sure other people on your team would have a more specific answer for this.
I do not have that answer.
Not a worry. But in general, Brandon, to give you an idea, a lot of what our application users are doing today are having some type of message queue in front of Hedera that allows for them to preserve the information when there's a downtime or update window, and then replay that as it's happening. So after it comes back online, the network, we can then replay that information that has yet to be written to the ledger. Now, of course, this isn't ideal, and Hedera itself has items on our roadmap to reduce that downtime and remove it entirely in the future. But for now, that's kind of the working model that we see a lot of these applications that are doing.
There you go.
Very good. Sorry, just combing through here. It seems like we've answered most of the good questions here that we can. And then I'm just curious from my own, do you have an idea of where you see this industry headed in terms of, that ratio of physical to digital coupons? Do you see that balancing out over time?
Yeah, I think when the national retailers are online and you can execute a coupon in this format within 5 miles of everybody in the United States, I think you'll see a really quick migration over to more of a digital format, and those numbers will shift dramatically. At the same time, people have been saying that paper is going to go away for 20 years, and it hasn't, and it's not going to. It's always going to be a part of the ecosystem.
That makes sense. That makes sense. Very good. Okay. Anything else you'd like to add there, Jeff, before we wrap up?
Just in terms of our rollout, I know your audience is really interested in when these transactions are going to start to show up, right? So that's what a lot of people want to know. So the second that the first national retailer turns on, just kind of imagine it like playing dominoes or stacking dominoes. Like that, they're all going to go because these guys at the top 10 retailer level, you can't have one retailer just having access to these coupons and the money that represents. It'll be a strategic disadvantage not to have that enabled. So once one is connected, which is in progress right now, then the others will immediately follow in quick order. And that's when you'll see our transactions really start to impact the Hedera network. But until then, it'll be smaller numbers than everyone wants to see. But like I said before, it's happening, and we couldn't stop it if we wanted to. It's going to happen faster than we think.
That's super exciting. I think it is a really interesting model, the Coupon Bureau in general for retail. And I think what I expect is to see that kind of model emulated across other industries as well, where you kind of have this almost a protocol of sorts born out of the industry and then built by this nonprofit or entity or whatever it might be, and see that adoption pick up quite quickly. So I think it's a really interesting model that we'll see more of, especially as Hedera.
Yeah, and we've along the way with Hedera's help, we've seen all these other things that need to be fixed, and you have to watch how many projects you take on, but there are so many opportunities to improve things through, number one, standardization, right? So if we just get everyone to agree on the best common good solution, a lot of times it's not technically hard to do, it's just getting the political agreement, the political will behind you to get it done. But Hedera has already helped us identify, brainstorm around all these new areas that I mentioned on the other slides. That's really just the tip of the iceberg. We can do a lot in retail with Hedera's help. So more to come.
Very cool. I'll leave on that note. Well, thank you, Jeff, so much for joining us. I'm sure it'd be great to have an update from you or Jay as you guys bring more online and having some exciting stuff to share. So stay tuned, everyone, for that. And thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.